This cylinder Iowa native brings his Northwest Iowa farming know-how to the state capitol. The State of Soy met up with Iowa Secretary of Agriculture Mike Naig to learn what it's like to manage a department of more than 400 personnel during a pandemic. Mike also shares his take on the prospects of a breakthrough with the U.S.-China Phase 1 trade agreement and how his department is proceeding with pesticide applicator training and permit renewals during a time of social distancing.
So Mike, probably the question that many soybean farmers are wanting to ask right now is, what is it like to be managing the Iowa Department of Agriculture in the midst of a pandemic?
This is challenging times for everybody, and how many times can we say things like unprecedented situation? And so it's absolutely true for us, both from an operational standpoint and how we have to still go about doing our business, right? We have to stay on mission for the department, and that means moving around the state and still working with landowners on conservation efforts and inspecting gas pumps, and also working remotely and yet still being able to provide customer service. So that's been a challenge for us. And then of course, in our mission, working with our producers and our agribusinesses across the state, again, just absolutely unprecedented disruption in that whole food and agriculture supply chain. So lots and lots of challenges, and we're all anxious. We're all anxious to get to the other side of this and talk about what normal looks like once again.
There are a lot of economic assistance programs available to farmers right now. Mike, which programs really rise to the top in your opinion, and how can farmers access those programs?
We've had such a disruption from shifting from food service to grocery, and what that means, and the dramatic reduction in market prices since, if you go back to January into April and May. And so it's impacted so many sectors of agriculture broadly. It's been quite a challenge, I think, for USDA to figure out how to provide the assistance to each one of those sectors. So we've been saying all along that what I think needs to happen is direct assistance to producers in some form to accommodate for that market loss. And then two, the purchase programs, and we've seen USDA really step up and make significant billions of dollars worth of purchases of surplus products that would have otherwise gone to food service or are available to be donated to food banks and food pantries because, of course, we're seeing growing food insecurity across the country. And so I think the direct assistance piece along with the food purchases is a good two-pronged approach. Now, we would still say that that's only a good start because USDA has not fully considered all of the impacts. We still think our egg producers, our renewable fuels industry, turkey producers, there's several sectors that have not yet been included in those direct payments, and we think they should be. And then of course you've got the piece about animals that have got to be euthanized and disposed of because there's been a market disruption. And here too we think that that's appropriate for USDA to provide an indemnification for the value of that animal, and then also to be able to provide some assistance with the disposal costs, which we stepped in as a state of Iowa to provide some assistance on that disposal front. So that's been the assistance piece that I think has been so important for folks. And again, it's always important to remember, none of this will make our producers whole. It only bridges them through to the other side and helps them stay on their feet.
What can you tell us with regards to how the department is managing the pesticide applicator training that is so important for soybean farmers?
We were able to secure waivers for some of our pesticide applicators in that folks that had a private or a commercial applicator license last calendar year, we extended that through this calendar year. A challenge was for folks that needed a new license, and that's created some issues because that is typically done through in-person testing. And EPA wouldn't give us a waiver on that, and so we've had to figure out how to get creative with some of our testing options. And now we're currently offering, and have for several weeks, offered drive-in testing. And it's working well. We've offered locations across the state, but I think for the most part, between the waivers and the testing, we've been able to get people where they need to be.
We've actually passed the 10-year anniversary of the Iowa Nutrient Reduction Strategy. Soybean farmers have played a key role in that, in the progress. What is your message to them?
Soybean Association has been an incredibly important partner as we developed the nutrient reduction strategy and as we've launched it and as we've seen it grow and scale up. I'm proud of the public-private partnership that has developed in this state. We've said all along at the department, this is not something that can only be done within the walls of the Iowa Department of Agriculture and Land Stewardship. If we don't have ownership on the part of landowners and producers and cities and businesses across the state, then we will never be successful in what we know we need to do. And I think that is playing out, and Iowa is a model for that. I'm proud of that. And then I think about what comes next, right? Scaling up. And we still have room for innovation. We haven't learned the last thing we're ever going to learn about water quality. We haven't learned the last thing we're ever going to learn about how to deliver practices. We absolutely must be heading in the direction of expanding our reach and accelerating the adoption of practices.
Thinking about the value chain that goes from the farm to the plate, what has transpired, Mike, here during the pandemic that you believe could become a permanent change to that system in the years ahead?
You know, this is a really good question. And shame on us if we don't look back at this time and understand everything from every aspect of the supply chain, everything from what it takes to get inputs to the farm, to put a crop in the ground or deliver the feed and services to our livestock producers, all the way down the chain to a plate being set in front of you at a restaurant or picking something off of the grocery store shelf. And to understand that and to really look at that from beginning to end and understand how important our essential workers are. How important are the employees who show up every day at work at our meat processing plants right now? I think we're getting a chance to remember that and understand that in new ways, and we should. Maybe, just maybe, Americans will have a better understanding and maybe a better appreciation for the fact that food doesn't magically appear on the grocery store shelf. And that we too in this country, even as fortunate as we are and as wonderful a food and agriculture supply chain as we have, that we have seen disruptions to that. And those disruptions in the supply chain have resulted in less availability and less choice for some consumers. And to know that and to remember that, perhaps that helps us as Americans have more of an appreciation of where our food actually comes from.